and gravida with the para all stretched out. The reason I'm taking extra time with this is because not only did it affect the test, but this is something you all are supposed to be doing in clinicals. And so I apologize if I didn't give it enough attention in class, but I had explained it before clinicals, and had kind of, it was in the book, and people had been at clinicals for a while doing this on clinical paperwork. So I had sort of made maybe a bad assumption that everybody understood the concept of gravida and para, and that it didn't need as much in-depth as some of the other things that we were trying to, because we were trying to cover so much. So I do want to go back over it because it impacts not just here and the test. I don't know that it's going to be on the final per se, but I mean, there is potential for the final, but there's also clinical. So understanding gravida is how many pregnancies you have, regardless of their length. So for example,
including the pregnant woman.
Including the pregnant woman.
Currently
pregnant woman.
Okay.
She gets up on her gravida number because she's currently pregnant. Okay? So gravida just flat out is the number of pregnancies she's had. So, for example, I am a gravida 4, para 3, if we were just doing G and P, because I have had 4 pregnancies.
I thought the P is preterm.
Not in gravida and para.
Oh.
That's why it gets a little dicey. Okay, so if we're just talking about gravida and para, we're talking about how many pregnancies I've had, and then when we get to para, it's how many pregnancies I have delivered. Not how many children I have, but how many pregnancies I've delivered. So, for example, Miss Abraham uses herself as an example. Okay, she has triplets. Okay, so she is a gravida 1. She's a para 1. Because she delivered 1 pregnancy, but there's 3 kids that came out of that pregnancy. But it's 1 pregnancy that she delivered.
How?
So
You
that's
don't
your
count
test.
the number of children.
No,
You count the number
of
the
successful
The number of
pregnancies.
So
deliveries.
how is that a good way of?
That's why you have the TPA, the
Okay,
TPAL is because it doesn't give you very much information.
Right, okay.
That's why. Okay. So question number 21 was that you had a woman who had delivered triplets 5 years ago and is now pregnant again. So that means she had 1 pregnancy 5 years ago with her triplets, and she has another pregnancy now. So she was a gravida 2. Okay? She has not delivered her current pregnancy, so she doesn't get an extra para for that, but she only gets 1 para for her triplets. So she's gravida 2 and she's para 1. Okay? And then again, back to me, I had 4 pregnancies. I delivered 3 children. So I was a gravida 4, para 3. Miss Abraham had 1 pregnancy. She delivered 3 children, but it's still only 1 pregnancy. 1 pregnancy was delivered. So even though she has 3 kids out of that, she's a gravida 1, para 1. Yes?
Isn't it para past 20 weeks?
Well, yes.
Okay.
That's why my AB doesn't count.
Okay.
Para past 20 weeks.
Correct.
It has to be, it has to be a pregnancy delivered. So if we think of it as a miscarriage, right, because under 20 weeks it's a miscarriage, not a, right. And that's why. So it's past 20 weeks, but it's pregnancies delivered. So it doesn't matter how many babies were in the uterus at the time. It's how many pregnancies deliver past 20 weeks. Okay? Then the other way you can calculate it, the other question on the test then, was the Gtpal. And it's because para isn't very descriptive that we use the TPAL thing so that we can figure out really where all those babies are at. Because if Ms. Abraham has 3 kids and she's a G1P1, well, how did we get 3 kids? I mean, obviously we may be able to deduce that she had triplets, but it doesn't tell us that she had 3 kids. We don't have the living 3 piece. So it doesn't give us much information. So we go to the Gtpal, and T means how many term infants there were. Okay, so what do you have to be term? You have to be greater than 37 weeks. Okay, the P in this case, not to be confused with the P when it's just G and P, does mean preterm in this case. And so it's how many preterm babies were delivered. So that has to be between 20 weeks and 36 and 6/7 weeks. Then you have the A, which is how many babies were miscarried or aborted. So that can be, again, spontaneous abortions, miscarriages, or it can be therapeutic abortions. Women who have chosen to have an abortion for whatever reason falls into that number. And then L is how many live births, how many live children that, live children there are.
So, do your abortions also go into your preterm? Or no?
No, because preterm is only 20 weeks to 36 and 6/7. And so if they fall in that category, then that's not an abortion, it's a preterm baby that maybe didn't make it, but it's a preterm baby. Okay, so back to my example then, if we stretch it out to Gtpal, I had as a gravid of 4. I had 2 term infants, 1 late preterm infant, so 1 preemie, 1 abortion, spontaneous abortion, and 3 living children. Okay? Miss Abraham would have, she'd be a gravida 1. She would have term, her triplets were slightly preterm, so she has term 0. She has preterm 3. I mean, not 3, but the 1. Okay? Because it's the number of pregnancies. Now, you'll notice your book says, and there is, and I'm not trying to confuse you even more, but when you do stretch it out to the Gtpal, there is some controversy, and there is not a standardization of what all those numbers really necessarily mean. Some still want to keep it the number of pregnancies, and some people want to number the children. So there does seem to be a variety when you stretch it out to the Gtpal thing.
But you want us to do pregnancies.
For your test, the right answer would have been that that woman was a gravid of 4. She had had 4 pregnancies. She hadn't given birth to the baby she was currently pregnant with. So she had 1 term baby, she had 1 preterm baby, and she had 1 abortion. So she was a G4, T1, P1, A1, living.
But Miss Abraham would have been 0 term, only 1 preterm? Because we're not counting babies, we're counting...
In this, the way we were doing it, yes. But again, you've got to understand that there is some variation there. So I don't know. So why I'm hedging my bets on that question is I don't know if you actually saw Gtpal at the hospital that Carolina East's policy or Carteret's policy or the hospital that you go to in, a couple months because you decided you wanted to graduate from here and be a maternal child nurse because I convinced you that that was the way to go. That you might not find something different there. So, and your book does tell you that there's a controversy, but when you get to gravida para and you only have the G and the P, it's very clear, very standard. Doesn't give you a lot of information, but it's very clear and very standard that what they want is number of pregnancies and number of pregnancies delivered past 20 weeks. And then when you get to Gtpal, then you're spelling out where each of those little people fall out so that you understand. Because you do get to have all, her 3 are living. You do get to count all 3 living children. She only has 1 preterm pregnancy. Okay. All right. Is that more clear? Okay. All right. Yeah.
cheating?
Multiple times. People. Aaron's like that.
You're using,
You mean earmuffs?
And they like my cats.
well, that would definitely, is a deal breaker. Jada was.
I miss her. She was a good girl. She's a good girl. She doesn't miss me. She misses me more.
She told me the other night.
You have a conversation? She's got problems for dating.